Welcome back, Fun Fam, and if you're brand new to the channel, welcome in to follow the Bradley's Fun. Happy Memorial Day, everybody. Let's get that off the screen. Sorry about that. Tom, yours has been sent. If you want to jump on, you're more than welcome. I should probably take this I voted sticker off. That's from a while back. How's everybody doing on this Memorial Day weekend? Well, I guess it's still the weekend because, you know, what, Monday counts, right? Let's see here, John. Disney is saying Chip and Dale were close friends and not brothers. Wondering your thoughts because many cartoons say they were brothers. You know what? To be honest with you, I have never paid attention to the relationship between Chip and Dale, but we might have somebody in the background who may know something a little bit about Chip and Dale. Let me bring him on. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. The old joke line is there's no truth to the rumor and they're just good friends.
Yeah, of course. Of course. How are you doing this morning on your...
Oh, gosh, I don't know. You know, any day you're above rather than below the ground is a good thing, unless you're, I guess, in Minecraft somewhere. But not bad. How about you and yours?
We're having a decent Memorial Day weekend. Saturday, was it Saturday? Saturday, yeah. Saturday, my wife and I went to check out Helios, the new Epic Universe Hotel.
Yes.
And I will tell you, there's a couple thoughts that I have about it. Some criticisms. My biggest criticism is that the lobby area is small and leaves a lot to be desired. They went for a small lobby, which I guess, considering the space they have, is probably the best thing that they could do. It's okay. So to give you an example of the tower that I worked at, the Grand Destino Tower, which it doesn't have like the 90s Disney theming, right? Like not in the 90s, all the new hotels that opened up, that Disney theming was like off the chain, right? It was, everything was so themed in the 90s.
Well, and I have always said that most of the Universal hotels, as nice as they are, feel very Hyatt at an airport to me, as opposed to being themed the way that the Disney hotels have been.
But that's the direction they're moving the Disney hotels to, the new ones. So
exactly, the Genslerization, so to speak.
Yeah. So I moved. I helped open the Grand Destino Tower in 2019 at Disney, and it's gorgeous. It's beautiful. It's just not. It's not tremendously Disney. It's got some really cool homages to Disney, like where they have. I mean, Disney and Salvador Dali met.
Yes.
And,
yes.
And so that's the kind of thing that they were going for. The whole idea of the Grand Destino Tower in the quote unquote theming is that the Coronado Springs Resort was already sort of Mexico, South America, like that. So the idea is that the Spanish influence bled into Mexico and South America. So the Grand Destino Tower is supposed to represent Spain.
Right.
So what they didn't take into consideration is, how Cortez came in and killed everybody. But then, so,
It's called cultural appropriation, isn't it?
Yeah, boy did they appropriate.
Well, we're just here for the gold, man.
Yeah, we've got another guest coming to the stage today. By the way, if you, my audience has probably noticed, it's very different. We're going to say hi to everybody in just a minute, but I got to go get my coffee. And in order to do that, I'm going to add to the stage Mr. Tom F. Welcome in. Are you there? I brought him up, but his thing didn't come
He took the
up.
gold and ran.
He took the gold and ran. Let's see if he's having an issue.
To be fair to Cortez, I think most of the deaths were due to unexpected disease, shall we say, from Europe than the sword,
They don't know what they're bringing over. That's kind of
well. On the other hand, we all remember when we first went to the moon, all that decontamination stuff that the astronauts had to go through coming back, and it was like, what were you going to think you were going to get on a barren rock with no atmosphere? But still, just in case. The good news is we found life. The bad news is all our guys are dead. So.
Boy, did you? Yeah, there are, hidden bacteria that could be out there in existence. It's very interesting to me, the whole life thing. Yes, there are mathematical probabilities in this and that and the other, but
it's life, Jim, but not as we know it.
If science is correct, it's possible that life happens on different times on different planets, and maybe the only reason we've never had alien contact is they just exist at different times.
Well, that could be.
Or maybe we've had alien contact and they're truly hiding.
And the whole thing about the signals from our radio and TV going out into the void and winding up somewhere millions of years from now, and as if they were yesterday, and vice versa. So, time is a bitch.
Yes, indeed.
Lunchtime, doubly so.
Time is a Beyonce.
Yes. Well, my favorite line is still Tom Stoppard, the British playwright, who said, "What is time anyway? Is it real or just a confidence trick invented by the Swiss to sell watches?" So, Tom's time machine just crashed.
It did.
Oh, anyway,
I've seen. It's interesting when you talk about time. Back to the Future, that property, but man, has it lasted without any other additional movies. There's been no need,
and they don't want to, and they won't, and they've been asked and they refuse, and good for them.
And I think, isn't Gale from St. Louis?
I don't remember.
I feel like Bob Gale is from my hometown. There's a lot of St. Louisans who have, reached their.
Is it officially St. Louisians or is it?
I don't know. St. Louis. I think I always said St. Louisan growing up, but I also said
I always found it strange that people from Glasgow are Glaswegians, and I thought,
really?
how did and I don't know how that happened, but that's what they're called.
It's possible, just because of how much they drink.
Oh well, I hadn't thought about that.
Those Glaswegians, that's great, right there. Anyway, let me say hi to everybody that's out there real quick. Coming in, we've got Snortopoopas, Q Burr, Andy W. Hello. Those are the first ones in the house today. Jeremy Heath says hello, US, yes, go US. Tom F, of course, he should be joining us momentarily. Tanner Stanley, good morning. My mom, say hi to my mom, Kathleen. Fantastic.
Hi to my mom.
Hi, Mom. That's Service Dog. Ruff. And Erica and Raph is here. In our back channel that you know of, that I'm not talking about on the air, that's where your invitation is. And Dan's Life at the Kingdom is here. Good morning. On to the fallen soldiers. They hope everyone has an epic day. Yes, indeed. Who am I missing? Jonathan, the Chippendale comment. We got that. Good morning. Good morning. Show. Come on, StreamYard work. And go Shuggy.
I never got a sibling vibe from them personally, but
I didn't know I mean, I was wondering if you knew any history there.
No idea.
No, okay, same
I
as
mean, we
me.
can all Google the hell out of it, but God, I'm too tired for that crap. It's just like,
Speaking of
oh,
that, do you have any veterans in your family, or you have veterans yourself that you think about on a day like today?
I think about a lot of friends from high school who didn't come back from Vietnam. Is who I think
Wow.
about. Quite a few, quite a few,
So,
and
my
and
my
my father was
stepdad,
was in the Navy in World War II, but that's long and long ago, and he happily survived and came home and married my mother and made me and all that kind of stuff.
yeah.
But no, my old man was a electrician's mate on an aircraft carrier, what they
Oh
called
wow.
Jeep carriers, the smaller carriers that were built as escorts. And he said that the most dangerous duty he had in all of World War II, the ship was based in Bremerton up in Puget Sound. And he said they would hang him from a bosun's chair over the corner of the flight deck to change the light bulbs on the running lights. He says that was a little spooky in a high sea. But he was supposed to, it was up there training pilots to take off and land on the carrier. And then they were going to go over to the Pacific, and they gave everybody yellow fever injections. And he and a few other guys got a bad serum. And he said his arm swelled up the size of a inner tube, and the ship left without him. And so by the time they could get him on another one, thank God the war was over. But anyway,
My stepfather served during Vietnam, and he did not go to Vietnam. He went to Germany, and his first wife, who unfortunately ended up passing away in a car accident early on in their marriage, they got married over there. They actually got married, I think, in Switzerland while he was serving. The reason he did not go to Vietnam, though, is because his brother Sam, my uncle, yes, my uncle Sam, was serving at the same time, and he got sent to Vietnam. And this was in that age, well, right after
that's
where they
that's all a result of the famous Sullivan brothers, who all were on the same ship in the same theater of war and died. And after that, they made it a rule that siblings would not go to the same theater of war or the same ship or the same division or whatever.
So then, of course, my Uncle Sam made it back, made it home. We've been very fortunate. My grandfather served in World War II. Both my grandfathers, my grandfather on my mother's side and on my father's side, they both served in World War II. They both returned home. However, my grandfather on my mother's side was a cook, and he didn't see a whole lot of fighting. On my dad's side, he saw way too much fighting, and he came home with undiagnosed PTSD and was not the same person. Unfortunately, I never got to meet him. I've only heard stories about him, but he was apparently not very good to my dad's brothers and sisters once he returned from that situation, because he was so mentally changed by it, unfortunately.
Yeah, a lot of people were. I think it's analogous in a way to, I read interviews with the author Joseph Wambaugh, who most people know was a real cop and then became a writer of cop stories. And he said that the average policeman never drew his gun in his entire career, but they had a very high rate of suicide and of bad marriages and everything else, because he said when you spend your day every day with the dregs of society, you start thinking everybody's that way, including the people around you. And it was a real psychological issue for a lot of cops. So I imagine coming back from that war, where certainly horrible things happened, all of them, any war, I mean, by definition. Anyway, we're also cheerful today, but I just want to make sure everybody gets the distinction that today is about the people that died. Veterans Day is about the people that served, and hallelujah, and I'm glad you did. But today is specifically about those who didn't come home one way or another, and we owe them a huge debt we can never repay.
Yeah, I think about it this way because a lot of times a lot of people maybe don't think about anything other than the celebrations, the cookouts, the fireworks, yes, that's all enjoyable. But the whole point of that is that we remember those who literally gave their entire lives, their actual life, so that we could, in fact, celebrate. And I think we is it possible we may have another person to celebrate with?
Doc, calm down, okay? Just calm down. It's me, it's Marty.
No, it can't be you. I sent you back to the future.
Hey, Doc, that's right, but I came back again. I came back from the future. Don't you remember last night? You fainted. I brought you home.
This can't be happening. You can't be here. It doesn't make sense for you to be here. I refuse to believe that you are here.
Oh, but you are here and you're working now. It's Tom.
Brave decided not to be so brave this morning.
I hate when that happens.
I am going to leave you two for just a moment to discuss something because I have to refresh my caffeinated morning beverage.
See, I started on that early. I don't know why, but I did.
Yes, I had one cup already. I'm waiting for the coffee to brew.
How
That
you
magic
magic moment of anticipation, huh?
Yeah.
Caffeine anticipation. I'm pretty good. I've had a long weekend physically, but I'll get by.
Awesome.
Stuff happens.
Yes.
But I just wish I could sleep more. That's all. Sleep is a good thing. If you can get some, everybody.
I've been trying to sleep. 2 dogs, rockets, different things.
Oh, well. I only have my internal disturbations to blame for not sleeping rather than anything outside. It's been a rather quiet weekend here in the neighborhood. Although we had some thunderstorms and we're supposed to have some more later today. So,
Yeah, it's supposed to be some bad ones rolling through.
yeah, as a transplant from California to the Southeast, this whole concept of weather is an alien thing to me. I've had, what the heck is weather,
I'll take the thunderstorms over snowstorms any day.
Well, yeah, and here where I am, it snows and it's on the ground for 3 days and it's gone. I mean, in the over 7 years now that we've been here, that's all we ever get. So, the people that live up in the Midwest where it gets muddy and sloppy and nasty storm residue from snow, when we were looking for someplace to escape to, one of the possibilities, believe it or not, was South Dakota and Montana and all that. And we went up there and looked around quite a bit. And the year we happened to go, it was still snowing in May. I thought that was probably a little too much, I mean, we thought, winter, what the heck? You have food on store and you have your chains and you have your generator and you live through it and you deal with it. It's kind of fun, but not if it lasts until May. You don't. That's too much. So that was the end of that.
Yeah.
I spent a few years, 2-3 years living in Utah, and it was usually snow on the ground until in May. It was interesting because typically after the first snow, depending on where in Utah you lived, a lot of times that the first snow comes in late October, November, and there's snow on the ground from that point on until May. I had never seen that before in my life. Living in St. Louis, it's kind of different. You get snowfalls, but then it goes away in 2 weeks, and at the most, sometimes it snows.
And here, like I said, it's a 3-day phenomenon always.
Yeah,
it's beautiful, it's pretty, it's nice. You avoid it for a day or two, and then you're back. Yeah. So anyway,
we don't get that here.
Where I live now, I'm moving south.
Yeah.
Oh, you're more likely to get hurt. Because, man, your guitar collection looks awesome back there, Tom. I gotta tell you, it's brilliant. He's our a pirate guy. Let's see what Mr. Fulton Mraz has to say. He just popped in here. He says, "I have a big breaking news today. The TV show star, Phil Robertson from Duck Dynasty. Phil. Oh no, not Phil.
Well,
yeah, that's I loved watching that. Did you know he actually had a line of mobile homes?
No.
That too?
Yeah, Duck Dynasty mobile homes. They're actually really cool. Me and Linda actually walked through one, and we were both like, "Wait, this is a Duck Dynasty." It was neat. It was actually cool.
So they made them, or they had some mobile home company make their
They
version,
had a
you know,
mobile
like
home company make them, but they were all
Right.
themed by him and designed, and they're actually really cool designs. I was
I'm
shocked.
sure. Well, that's like, oh well, the car makers that do special editions that do. I'm trying. I know it, and I can't think of it, but they do a Bill Blass version, or they do a
Eddie
ranch.
Bauer, stuff like
Yeah,
that.
Eddie Bauer is what I was trying to think of. Yes, exactly. But
If I would have had 50 grand and a plot of land at the time that they started doing this, I probably would have bought one of those old Fort Wilderness cabins that they sold after they
oh,
Disney.
Oh, that would be
Just for the nostalgia of it. I mean, I would have had
Yeah.
to been super rich to do that because it would have wouldn't have been.
well, what? And you had to pay for transporting it, right? They took it to the property limits, and then you had to get it, or something like that. I seem to remember.
I don't know, but I will tell you there were several times when I was driving off of property or on around property, and I saw them being towed out to wherever they were being towed out to at that time. What was it, like 3 years ago?
Yeah.
It's interesting to see them on the highway. You go, like, I just saw one of those in Fort Wilderness. Now it's on the highway. I have yet to tour the new cabins. I want to see it, but it was I don't know. It was an interesting. It would certainly be an interesting piece of Disney to be able to own now, because it is history, even though they're technically just glorified mobile homes. So,
Well, that's kind of a big souvenir.
yeah, it's a really
You
big.
can't
souvenir.
make any house mobile, Ron. You just need wheels and a jack.
Yeah.
Or 2 or 12. There used to be these TV shows about people moving massive homes across country. And
Yeah.
Wow. The only thing that I've been a part of that's been massive that has moved across country is the thing that's on my introduction, where I'm the Skyscreamer guy, because that particular unit is the ride itself was in Las Vegas when I did the commercial for it, and it was moved here after MGM closed down their park there. And Fun Spot bought it, and now it's here over at the International Drive Fun Spot. And it's
So do
kind
you
of
get free rides since you initiated that thing? Can you go there and say, "Hey, I'm alumni"?
I've always wanted to try and go over there and say, "Hey, let me show you this commercial that I did on my phone. Can I ride it for free?"
I could revamp it now, but I might, have a different opinion when I get off it this time.
Yeah. It's the funny thing at the time was I was 30 years old, I believe, and it's so funny when you audition for something. Like, I had a really good audition. It was the very strangest audition I've ever done. I literally laid down on a black box, and the director took me through all the direction of what the commercial was going to be, and I had to totally act it out as if I was on the ride. So when they said 3, 2, 1, fly, I screamed like at the top of my lungs. And I blew the audition away. It was great. But they talked in front of me, like this panel of 6, and they're looking at each other and they're like, "Yeah, he's really good. He's really, really good. But he looks so like," I'm like, "Guys, I'm right here. I'm in front of you." Anyway, I got the role.
Yeah, well, those
But
things.
They
God.
thought I looked too young because they wanted, more of a father figure type. And at 30, I'm 53 now. I don't know. A lot of people can't tell I'm 53, but I've always kind of looked young for my age. And if I would have known when I was maybe 25, 26, how young I looked for my age, I probably would have migrated to Hollywood at that point in time and started picking up stupid teenage roles and some dumb B movie high school stuff to start off with. But I didn't know because I always felt like I looked older. I don't know. It's weird.
See, my mother ran into the reverse of that. As I've mentioned before, my mother was an actress in radio and did quite a bit, but then gave it all up to marry my father and have us, Yeah. But in her 60s, maybe, a friend of hers said, "Well, we should go out and do commercials and stuff." And so she went out on a lot of auditions for commercials. And because I was a director, among other things, she would say, well, what do you think they want? And I tried to explain to her, they have no idea what they want until they see it. So just give it your best shot. And she did a couple. And she did, what was that prank show that, anyway, she did it. She did a bunch of those shows where she was supposed to be
Candid Camera.
Not Candid Camera, but like that. Mr. American Bandstand did, and a few other things like that. But anyway, and she went out, and she'd go out on grandmother parts, and they said you don't look old enough. So she, and then of course, if she got the part, by the time they went to shoot it, they had totally rewritten it and changed it. They were using the same people, but it was a totally different script. Commercials
it's
commercials
wild
are a funny world. I remember going out. A friend of mine who was a very prominent grip was working for a week on the Sears appliance commercial. Every quarter, I think, they had an appliance sale at Sears. And they came out from Chicago, the 13 people from Sears, and on a soundstage over at, I guess that was at Burbank. They had washers and dryers and vacuums and, stuff like that, each on pedestals. And for the spring one, it was all green. And for the summer one, it was all orange. And they had these fake flowers. And the host would walk around, save 30% on these dryers, save 20% on these washers. And the deal was that since they'd brought them there, they couldn't take them back to the store. So they sold them to the crew really cheap. And my friend got a refrigerator, but he didn't have a truck. And my father had a pickup. And so I drove out there to sit there for the day and then take the machine home. Well, it was a 2-day shoot. The first day, they shot all the big wide stuff up on the crane. The second day, they went in and I'm like, you couldn't do all that in a day. But hey, they were out there in the wintertime from Chicago enjoying California, and they wanted to take as long as they could. Turned out the first day's film went bad in the lab. So rather than just shoot new, since you weren't matching, they had the girl who was the art director up on the crane with a loop looking through, a little to the left, little to the right, trying to put these things back where they had been the day before, which wasn't ever going to be seen anyway. And that's the world of TV commercials. They spend money because they can.
Well, I want to get one story up on the screen today. Let me see. I got to do this, and then I got to do this other thing. And let me see here. I got to find the right story to. There we go. This is Out of That Park Place. It's an opinion piece by our good friend Marvin, the movie monster Montanaro. Let me add this to the stage. There it is. This Memorial Day, we remember the heroes Hollywood forgot. Again, Out of That Park Place by Marvin Montanaro, written for today, May 26th. There is our good friend Captain America, when he was still Captain America. As the nation pauses to honor its fallen defenders this Memorial Day, we at That Park Place want to take a moment to reflect not only on the sacrifices made by those who served, but on the stories we tell about them and what it means when those stories begin to fade. For generations, Hollywood was one of the great American storytellers through film. It captured the grit, courage, and resilience of those who stepped forward in moments of global crisis and gave them the spotlight and honor they deserved. This is a photograph here of U.S. Army Staff Sergeant Papa Jake Larson as he poses with his granddaughter Michaela following a special flag retreat ceremony where the veteran was honored at Disney Parks. This is out at Disney Parks vlog. This is something that they do every day at 5 o'clock at the Magic Kingdom. I'm assuming they do it at Disneyland too. Movies like Saving Private Ryan, Band of Brothers, The Longest Day, they didn't just entertain. They reminded us of the cost of liberty and the value of courage. They immortalized the American soldier not as a symbol of conquest, but as a shield against tyranny. They gave the world a window into a nation that didn't stand idly by when the stakes were highest. The soldiers of the United States who fought in World War II weren't abstract concepts or background players in someone else's narrative. They were the ones who tipped the tide, who crossed oceans not for glory, but to stand beside allies and push back against a rising darkness. They weren't perfect, but they were willing to risk everything for an idea that freedom mattered and that people mattered. And for decades, the world remembered that. These stories resonated across borders, not because they were propaganda, but because they were true. Lou, I want to go to you on this one, just because I know you've got the experience working in Hollywood. What, I imagine that you worked with veterans all over the industry.
Oh, yeah.
What was that
Oh, yeah.
like?
Well, of course, as we said, today is about those who didn't make it, but certainly everybody who served witnessed things like that. Most
Right,
of
they
them.
had the stories.
If nothing else, a generation and the several generations that went through that grew up. I wonder if some of today's kids ever will. And that's not a knock in a general blanket statement. It's just that by the behavior they're showing in their 20s and their 30s, they don't seem as grown up as people who saw real life and death and learned to deal with it. Now, as we've said, there were obviously negative mental effects on a lot of people too, but it gave you a grounding in reality. And you got to remember when World War II broke out in Europe, the entire armed forces of the United States were like 150,000 guys. They were very, very small and very, very undertrained. And the peacetime world was about promotion, and it was a club. Not saying they weren't competent people, but the degree to which they had to tool up and gear up for the massive numbers of men and material. I just read a fascinating book. I should look it up to give you the link, but I'm lazy today. All about, everybody talks about, well, it was the U.S. industrial might that won the war, the fact that we could make more planes and more ships and all of that. And what it ignores, and this guy doesn't in this book, is the number of mechanics and repair guys and specialists in all this equipment that had to be created out of thin air. That, when they suddenly said, when Roosevelt said, well, I want 15,000 jets, or not jets, but fighter planes. Wait a minute, who's gonna fix the machine? Who's gonna keep the pistons running? And they had to instantly create these massive schools. But the good news was that when they talked about the comparison between, for example, the American Army and the German Army, if our guys were driving a tank, they could kind of sort of fix it because they fixed engines and did cars back home. The other guys had no contact with that kind of mechanical effort. So anyway, I'm rambling on here. But as far as Hollywood, yeah, I worked with a lot of people. In particular, in my particular case, with the Marine Corps, because I was involved in a show with the Marine Corps. And those guys, I mean, we actually did an episode about how a corporate recruiter was coming on the base and telling everybody, hey, when your enlistment's up, you could be making six figures in the private industry because you guys are good organizers and leaders of men and logistical people. But at the end of it, they turned it down because they were there to serve. The things they gave up are more than time and portion of their lives. They gave up potentially huge careers because they felt a higher calling, and still do, thank God. Anyway, I don't know where you want to go with that, but just being spontaneous here. So, as I always am. Whoop, you're muted, Ron.
All right, yes. There's been a shift, and Marvin talks about that here. This is interesting. In recent years, Hollywood seems increasingly hesitant to embrace this legacy. There's been a quiet turning away from traditional portrayals of American heroism. Studio heads and cultural commentators now suggest that showcasing our servicemen and women in a positive light may be quote unquote too political or might alienate international viewers. Some even argue that in the current political climate, stories of American valor are no longer globally viable. But let's be clear, the people of a nation are not the same as the government. Soldiers don't choose the slogans or campaign buttons. They don't write foreign policy, but they do carry the weight of it. They serve, often in silence and often at great personal cost. To shy away from honoring these individuals because it may not fit the latest ideological trend, it's not a sign of progress. It's a sign of cultural amnesia. And it robs future generations of understanding what sacrifice truly looks like. When Top Gun Maverick took the world by storm, it wasn't just nostalgia that drew people in. It was pride. It was respect. It was the quiet, unshakable feeling that someone was still out there doing the hard job with honor. That's what resonates. That's what uplifts. And I feel like that's what we truly celebrate during Memorial Day. We celebrate.
And by the way, talk about Maverick. Did you see where they're going to build, I think first in Vegas, but they're talking about other locations, a Top Gun Maverick experience, where you can not just jet simulators, but also the bar from the movie is going to be recreated, and along the lines of the Halloween Horror thing or the John Wick thing. But anyway, yeah, that's in the works now. So
that would be cool.
Yeah.
This Memorial Day, as families gather in flags, our lower to half staff, we urge Hollywood to remember the role it once played, the power it once held, to preserve memory, to elevate courage, and inspire unity and not division. To every man and woman who has worn the uniform of the United States, we see you, we thank you, and to those who never came home, your memory lives on, not just in monuments or holidays, but in every story that dares to honor the truth of what you gave. From all of us at that Park Place, thank you for your service. We remember, we honor, and we will not forget. And that's the. I think it's a great message. I'm sure, Tom, you have thoughts about Memorial Day and those that you may know who gave their all for us.
Yeah. Relatives, friends, their family members. They give a lot so we can do what we're doing.
Yeah. And I don't want to be somber. It's not a somber message. What it is, it's a message of celebration. There's a song that Tim McGraw did a few years ago called "If You're Reading This." It's a hard song for me to sing because it's hard to get through it. The song is a letter written by a soldier who has fallen to his bride back home, who is pregnant, and and in the song, in the letter, he talks about, if you're reading this, I'm not going to get to see our daughter be born, but just make sure that she has this and this and this.
Yeah, and it's interesting historically, the attitude changed. I also just read a wonderful book by a historian who mostly covers older wars, but he decided to do a profile of the Annapolis class of 1940, which was the last full class before the war, because after that they started shortening it so they could turn out more officers, and where they went and what they did and where they wound up. And he talks about how lots of them, before they went overseas, had an attitude of, well, I love this girl, but we shouldn't get married because maybe I won't come back. And on their first chance, if they survived to get leave, they instantly rushed to get married because they said we should, and we should have kids, even if I'm not coming back in the long run, because that's what life is about. The anticipation was different than the reality. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Anyway, great book, by the way. Guy named Simon, Symonds, I think it is. And I wish I could tell you the name, but look it up and read it. It's pretty interesting.
I probably didn't realize this when I was young and growing up, because I entered my teenage years in the 1980s and didn't realize for the adults how not long after the Vietnam War that was to them. A decade as an adult is not that long of a period of time.
Yeah.
And so it was very, very interesting. I had the opportunity to go to high school in Arkansas. And when I was growing up in St. Louis, I grew up very liberal. I only went to high school in Arkansas for about a portion of a semester. It wasn't even a whole semester. And it was interesting to me, the shift, because the high school that I went to in St. Louis was extremely liberal. Okay. This is so they never encouraged any of us to go into the military. They discouraged military recruitment. They did not, it was
What year are we talking about, Ron?
1990 was the year that I graduated.
Okay. Yeah.
So, but when I went to high school for that small semester, it was the beginning of my senior year, 1989. There's some things that happened. I was in Arkansas, totally the opposite. Everybody was being recruited for the military in this small town. And it gave me, at the time, as a young person, without the wisdom and knowledge that I have now, a bad taste in my mouth about the military, because not really the military itself, but this whole ideology that, if you're really intelligent and smart and you're going to go on to these great schools and this and that and the other, but if you're from some podunk town in Arkansas, you got to go into the military and fight. And it's like, I look back at that now and I think that, it's not a good look for not our military. It's not a good look for our educational system. Our educational system should be given all people across the board any opportunity that they want. As young people, they should say, hey, look, if you want to be a hero, if you want to be not even a hero, if you just want to stand up for what you believe is right and fight for your country, or whatever other job, because there's like lots of jobs that aren't fighting in the military, go for it, do that.
And it's also a measure of, frankly, the elitism of so many people. For example, people who think it's more valuable to go get a college degree in gender studies or whatever, as opposed to going to trade school, becoming a welder or a plumber or an electrician, and walking out with no debt and a career that's going to pay you 150 grand a year and keep you home with your family and satisfy you because you're actually doing something that's in demand. But that's a larger political discussion, maybe, than we want to go into.
Well,
but that attitude that, people who are in the military are just dummies who couldn't make it doing anything else, unfortunately exists among our elitely educated youth.
Yeah. In New Jersey?
In Jersey, it did too. I tried to get in the military 4 times. I couldn't get in past for medical reasons. Stupid, but tried 4 times. All different brass. Passed the ASVAB. Passed was enough to take any position I wanted. Basically, I was offered different jobs in the military, and I just couldn't get the health thing. I had other friends who would foo-foo everybody because they believed it was beneath them.
Well, Tom, it was clearly the wrong timing for them. The super soldier program had ended. That would have been perfect.
There you go. There you go.
Listen, maybe my hair wouldn't be so gray. Maybe I'd be a little bit more buff. I don't know.
You'd have a keen shield as a souvenir too.
Right. You'd have to pass it on to somebody for DEI reasons, but that's besides the point.
No. I'd give them a different shield. I'd just paint it rainbow colors. They'd never know the difference.
Yeah.
Right.
But speaking of which, by the way, I know this is an aside, but it is true that the Falcons version of Captain America does have a completely different shield than Steve Rogers had. That I don't know where. Like, the biggest question I have that still hasn't been answered in the MCU is where the heck did that particular shield come from? Because we don't know yet, but it definitely has a different design. But my point is that this attitude, this kind of a very, very liberal attitude towards the military, it existed in my school even back in the 1980s, and it has pervaded Hollywood. Whereas Hollywood, I know, Lou, that you saw probably. I'm assuming that you have seen kind of a cultural shift even in Hollywood.
But you see, the prominent people who are to put it simply, to the left, are not the majority. See. Because I know not just among the quote unquote below the line people, the grips and electricians and everybody else, who come in all political flavors too, just like everybody. But there are lots of prominent people who have those values but they don't want to make a big deal out of it, not so much because they fear being ostracized by those who are on the other side, but because they think their job is to entertain, not to propagandize one way or another. And they're right. I mean, look at this thing where somebody tried to ask Tom Cruise a political question, and he said, "We're here to talk about the movie, thanks," and moved on from there. He was not always that grown up.
That's how it should be, though.
It is, but once upon a time, he was kind of all over the map, and there was that whole jumping on the couch with Oprah and all the other crazy things. But
I'm surprised he survived that. I mean, I just saying.
and deep dive into the whole Scientology thing and all. But people either there's a wonderful adage: time either promotes you or exposes you. And if you think about it, that's the truth of everything and everyone and whatever job and whatever field of endeavor you're in. And it's certainly true about families. So anyway, I didn't mean to be this serious today, but what the heck?
But
and I do have to bug out in about probably 20 minutes to get ready, because although we normally do it on Sundays, due to some scheduling conflicts, Vash and I are doing our Backlot with Lou and You show at 11 o'clock.
I
live.
think that we're going to go into culture, and then culture is going to go. So we're ending soon here in just a moment. Anyway, I just wanted to give a final thought to this particular story, that on this Memorial Day, as we have these major celebrations, as we have as we celebrate our family and friends, our loved ones, our lives, and our liberty, remember that all of this came from the sacrifice of those who went before. And as we look at this through the lens of things like pop culture, theme parks, and family enjoyment, regardless of whether we like the pop culture or we have criticisms against it, this movie or that movie or a theme park or whatever, all of this wonderful stuff exists because of those who gave their lives. And I think all of us just need to remember to be grateful for that as we honor the fallen on this Memorial Day.
All the way back to the Revolution.
All the way back to the Revolution, indeed.
Another wonderful set of books that I've been reading. There's a historian named Rick Atkinson, and he is putting out a 3-part series on the Revolution, and the first 2 are out now. And the first one's called, I think, The British Are Coming. He tells you things about how life was, and how, not just here, but in Paris and in London and all these places that were involved. Gosh, if you want to hear about the revolution in a way you've never heard about it before, go get that book by all means. And I can't wait for his 3rd one to come out and complete the series.
Speaking of, before we head out the door here, Tom, Lou, anything that you want to promote or let people know? I know, Lou, 11 o'clock is the Hollywood Backlot with Lou and Vash on T3PO, right?
Right. Normally we are at 2 on Sundays, but this week we got a little out of sync because of Vash having to travel. But I'll be probably with Vash and the gang on the T3PO show tomorrow afternoon around 3 o'clock, and various other places. And of course, the genre guys continue to explore our culture through the movies. We just did one of my all-time favorite movies that most people have never even heard of, and that is The 7 Faces of a Dr. Lowe, with Tony Randall and directed by George Pal. And if you've never even heard of it, go find it. And when our thing comes out, watch it. And we also did Mary Poppins just recently. So talk about, running the gamut. And next up, we're going to do You Only Live Twice, the James Bond movie in Japan.
Cool.
Which has, I always cite it as my favorite scene, where Tiger Tanaka, the head of the Japanese Secret Service, takes Bond to a geisha house, and they're being bathed by these beautiful geisha girls. And the girls are giggling, and Tiger says, "Bon-san, you know why they laugh?" He says, "No." He says, "Because of the hair on your chest. Japanese men are beautifully without." And Bond says, "Tiger, old Japanese proverb, bird not make nest in barren tree."
Oh, that's funny.
But of course, that's the movie that made Connery quit because the paparazzi in Japan were so oppressive he couldn't go through it anymore. Anyway, we're doing that, and we're doing, we've got oodles and oodles of movies on our list. And of course, those of you who are members on the Pro channel get to see them first. And then about 3 months later, they show up on T3PO for the masses, as they say. So, yeah, I'm around.
Very cool. And Tom.
I'm just stream hopping. Gonna try to do some more launch videos, and I'm following Lou around with a big blue wrench.
That's right.
That's true. That's true.
Robin's wrenching
one of our
everywhere. So
ablest wrenches.
we appreciate
trying to
that.
keep the wrench in line.
Yes.
When you go to the barbecue at Epic, are you a saucy wrench?
Yeah.
Anyway,
I'm gonna be there Wednesday actually with Barry Place
Ooh,
28.
I wish I was, but I'll be here at home.
You can come
Well,
on down.
Oh,
Thank you,
eventually.
Thank you, gentlemen, for being here today. We've got to move on, get over to Culture Casino, and then the T3PO after that. So thank you guys so much, and everybody have a great Memorial Day. Remember the fallen, honor those who came before, and don't ever take your liberties for granted, because people paid the ultimate price to give those to you. Thank you so much, everybody, and until next time, we'll see you real soon. Bye, everybody.
care.
Ciao.
Bye.